Expansion of the Visual and Decline of the Verbal on the Internet, Readability in the 21st Century by Dr. Elizabeth Kirk and Dr. Jean Kiekel from the University of Houston. Technology provides access to current information, increases student interest in the content, and helps build 21st century skills. School districts spend hundreds of thousands of dollars to purchase computers and technological equipment, and teachers are expected to use it. When materials are too easy to read, students are not challenged to strengthen their reading skills. When materials are too difficult to read, students become frustrated. They will not make progress, may not remain on task, and could possibly give up. They will often detest and may stop reading. Finding a balance is important to achieving educational goals. Our research question is, how readable are educational websites? Because teachers are compelled to use as much technology and internet resources as they can, the design of educational websites can contribute or hinder the overall educational goals. Each of these elements have an effect on the overall readability formula. We will briefly discuss each of these items and how they can affect the readability before we discuss our research findings. The first thing you see when you look at a web page are the images. Evaluation of the major features and suggested elements is important. This includes the space the image occupies, what format or media is being used, and the shapes used in the image. What concepts are being illustrated through the images? Does the illusion presented in the images lead viewers to a different conclusion? Do the images assist the viewer in understanding the information? Words and images in websites must be legible in order to transmit the intended message. The fonts used, the use of bold, italicized, or underlined text, serif or sans serif fonts, and alignment and spacing of the text and images on the page all affect legibility. Color use and contrast on a web page is important. Generally, black text on a white background is easiest to read, but other combinations may work as long as the background is not more than 30% grayscale and the text is dark. Because reading on a computer screen can be more difficult than reading from paper, the user interface can help. This is the look and feel of a website. How are the items arranged? Does the site encourage the user to scroll to find information, or is everything presented in one screen? Students look at consistent aspects of a page for familiarity and ease of use. Pages should be linked in a logical order, and all pages need a link to the home page. There should be no dead ends to frustrate students. There should be no links to outside information unless there is a way to get back to the website. Navigation controls should be consistent throughout a site. Cognitive load affects the student's ability to process information. Web pages should be kept simple to keep cognitive load to a minimum. Readability studies list these factors regarding general readability of text, which can easily be applied when evaluating the readability of websites. The typeface or font used on websites affects the legibility of the writing. The number of words on a page, density of concepts, and structure of the language and story all contribute to legibility and readability. The quality of images and the interaction of the images with the text may reduce the cognitive load and improve the overall readability. The general appeal of the site to the students and their background experience may also play a role in overall readability. Quantitative readability formulas calculate readability on the basis of these items. For this paper, we used the Frye and Flesch-Kincaid readability scales and the Flesch Reading Ease scale to determine the readability. The International Reading Association encourages teachers to use sites recommended by recognized publishers, authors, or academic institutions. For this study, a website from the American Library Association's Great Websites for Kids was chosen. The site for author and illustrator Chris Van Allsburg was selected. It was chosen because it met the ALA's 4 categories of appropriateness as outlined on their site. Inclusion on the ALA website means it has the potential to impact students in the classroom. The ALA places a recommendation for all individual sites it recommends, and this site is recommended for students in pre-K, elementary, and middle school, as well as teachers and parents. Van Allsburg's site has a fantasy theme. A quill mysteriously scrolls across the page as it writes a message. The images seem to be drawn from a child's perspective and are meant to pique the interest of the students. Upon entering, inanimate objects seem to come to life and move across the screen. Each page is presented in a single screen with no scrolling required. There are links to multiple pages located across the top of a dialog box as highlighted here. These links open to more menus for navigation when scrolled across. This feature will be shown later. Clicking on the links takes the reader to information about the author, his works, books, and news articles. Teachers and parents can find links to educational activities to correspond with Van Allsburg's books. For this site, we found the Flesch Reading Ease score ranged from 9.1 to 87.8 with an average Reading Ease score of 64.89. The higher the score, the easier the text is to read. The Flesch-Kincaid Readability score ranged from grade 3 to 15.8 with an average readability of grade 8.44. The Fry readability level ranged from grade 3 to grade 13 with an average readability grade level of 7.95. Because the American Library Association recommended this site for pre-K, elementary, and intermediate grade levels, the readability of the site was inappropriate for most of its recommended audience. Most of the images used on the site are Van Allsburg's own work or photographs of his work. If the students are familiar with the author, they will be familiar with the images. This will increase their interest in exploring the site. There are 2 photographs which we assume to be photos of the author himself. One consistent aspect of the site is the dog in this image, which appears on many pages throughout the site. The site uses standard writing, but there were spelling, punctuation, and capitalization errors throughout. Typefaces were conventional with no use of bolded text. Underlined text indicated links. Book titles were italicized. 2 typefaces were used, Calibri and Verdana. These sans serif typefaces may be more difficult to read, but may be more familiar to students. Left-aligned text is used throughout the site. The jagged right edge forces the reader to the next line. A line length of 40 characters is desirable in a digital environment, with 12 words per line considered optimum. Most pages on the site used line lengths of approximately 30 characters with 6 to 7 words per line, which is slightly less than recommended. The page on this slide is closer to the ideal, but the contrast between the text and the background makes the text more difficult to read. Type in all capital letters appears as display text. As highlighted here, the display text is in the same color as the background, but has a lighter value. The colored background on some pages appears to bleed into the white text as shown in the previous slide. Navigation is consistent throughout. As previously mentioned, page links are located across the top of the dialog box. When scrolling across the page links, navigational links appear to the side of the dialog box for all subpages in that section, as seen here. However, these links do not remain on the screen, and when finished with a page, you must scroll across the page links to get the individual sublinks to show up again. The timeline in books pages are redundant. Whether you click on the book in the timeline or the book title on the books page, you are taken to the same information. All pages include a link to the home page, and navigational controls are in the same place and displayed in the same manner throughout the site. There are 2 links taking the reader out of the main site to an auxiliary site that the author supports. To the right of the dialog box are 2 pizza-shaped arrows. It is not readily obvious that these are navigational arrows. When the mouse is scrolled over the arrow, the text scrolls very quickly and cannot be read while scrolling. In some cases, there is more than one additional dialog box of text, so the reader has to move the mouse off the arrows at the right time to make sure the information can be fluently read. Nothing on the website significantly adds to the cognitive load, and everything seems to be organized with a child viewer in mind, except the actual readability of the text. Instructional design of the websites for educational use needs to consider the entire site and its audience. In Van Allsburg's site, we have a fairly high reading level for the recommended audience according to ALA recommendations. At the present time, there is very little research related to the topic, so additional research comparing educational websites recommended for like age groups, themes, and design elements still needs to be done. This research will help teachers find appropriate sites to meet educational goals. If you have any questions or comments, please contact us at the email addresses given on the opening screen. Thank you.